Paramerican Radio, everybody. I am your host, as always, Chad Kalick, hanging out with my best friend, my Pippin to Jordan, my Rice to Montana, my Batman to Robin.
I think the Rice to Montana is probably the best one.
Because we actually used to play football and actually Rice and Montana it up. Justin Holstein, as always, here with me. And the swipe writer himself, Stevie Tinder Zilberman, is in the house. He is trying to figure out what in the fuck happened with... we had a plug to our headphones that we used last night that literally between last night and tonight has vanished.
Some paranormal activity going on in our own office.
There's some paranormal shit. Or someone's just a fucking thief. And probably part two. It's probably someone's a fucking thief. That's probably what it is. So we're going to get to the bottom of that. But speaking about paranormal, this episode is going to be the follow-up about our investigation at Mr. Brian Callen'S house. Brian had made me aware that he spoke about this event during his Dropping Knowledge segment of The Fighter and the Kid. So, I definitely think we got a green light to talk about everything that occurred there. Because it's funny how interested people are in this. I put it out there that I was going to investigate Brian's place, and I swear, man, every day since then on my social media, people are just into the paranormal. They're just into it. It was... Did you go? What happened? What happened? What happened? This has been nonstop on my social media. And it's an interesting thing. I think there's no real demographic for it, right? Whether you're 5 years old interested in, the fantastic nature, the idea of ghosts, or whether you're on your deathbed wondering where you go, or whether you're just a normal age interested, normal age just thinking about it from a possibility standpoint, people like the paranormal.
Yeah.
People like the paranormal.
I'm surprised that happened. Just from listening to that episode, it just seemed he was so dead set against it and almost found it ridiculous.
Yeah. Look, I was really surprised about it, only because I mentioned this in the last podcast, but when I got there, Callen did this thing that people often do, is they place a value on their title. I'm the skeptic in the room. Everyone here is a believer. I'm the skeptic, and that's kind of how it's announced, and that's the guidelines that are set from the jump. So, like you said, it's almost you mentioned it's like politics,
right?
When someone proclaims there's something, they're almost making the stance before you start that no matter what you show me, I'm not going to move off of it. But to his credit, to take that stance and then to open up and openly say, now I think something may be going on in my house. And look, it takes a big man, to basically say maybe I was wrong,
Yeah. Well, somebody like Joe Rogan, has enough understanding. Are they friends with Joe? Or I guess I just don't know where Brian's where his head encompasses. Because there's again, like we were talking one of the other podcasts, it's such a broad spectrum that's going on here. I think he would legitimize something, that could be.
Well, I mentioned this before too. Is he's had times where he's gone on and basically said when it comes to the concept of God that he has urged people to kind of err on the side of God exists, and I remember thinking that was a really unique dichotomy that he would, partially, or at least be open to the idea of a God, but shut down the idea of a ghost, which the two are so close to being married to me. Long story short, it was interesting. When I think it was Schaub on the show that suggested, you should have Chad come down. And he was like, so I texted him and basically just said, look, if you're serious, I would love to come over. I don't want to go over there if it's just going to be fodder for a joke, you know what I mean? But if you're serious. So, I grabbed Stevie, took Stevie with me, and, Stevie had met him for the first time, and we met his wife, Amanda, who was just a breath of fresh air, just a total sweetheart, And I tell you this, Callen is naturally the funniest human being alive. I mean, that guy does not stop joking, man. I mean, he just has this very just funny nature about him. Everything you see on the show, I could tell you that's really Brian Callen. So essentially the first thing we did is just an interview. You know what I mean? Just talked about what had happened. And there's a couple things stood out. One, his son had described seeing this figure. I mean, right down to giving detail. He kept saying he had like a yellow thing around his face or a yellow face.
No, he described the figure as yellow.
Yeah. He gave details about what this was. And I think he said his son was 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
So a young kid, giving details about the thing that he's seeing. Callen had said he had heard footsteps on the second floor upstairs when no one was in there. But that furthermore, he had a friend come over. And that his friend essentially, told him, yeah, your place is haunted. I heard footsteps upstairs too. And which is interesting because now you have another witness that doesn't live there, that's not tied to the claims, that is stating, yeah, I experienced this. And then Brian showed me, and this is probably the most shocking thing, was this little lamp he had with these thick crystals. And while he was in his room, away from the crystals, he heard them clanging together, and he demonstrated the clanging sound of it. Well, when you'll see, I'm going to put together the footage because we filmed this, and I'll release it at a later date, and give it to Brian as well to release. And you'll see when you're in there that there's no way. I mean, there's no way that these crystals move unless something powerful impacts it.
But that didn't happen when you guys were in there, right?
That did not happen when we were there. It's happened on 2 occasions,
Well,
he
it
said.
did happen, but it wasn't a paranormal.
Yeah, he didn't fucking with us. We were all like totally dialed in, and he just leans over and cling. Of course, everybody jumps to the roof,
Yeah.
He's like, I had to do it. And I know the feeling. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a ghost hunt, and you're like, God, you just want to fuck with people.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was really unique and interesting. And so we said, listen, there's only one way to do it, which is to get to it. Let's do the ghost hunt, So we started out in his kitchen, which is on the main floor. And went through this typical protocol that we always do, which is, kind of identify yourself, set some ground rules. You can't hurt anybody. You can't do anything malevolent, blah, blah, blah. So I start, asking for any kind of responses, knocking responses and stuff. And right away, weird stuff's happening. Like little sounds are happening here and there, but it's not definitive in any, But I could see that Amanda's freaked. I mean, she's like getting really freaked to the point where she's like closing her ears because she doesn't want to hear it.
I was going to ask,
like,
what was her opinion about, like, did she talk about any of her stories outside of the clinging of the...
Well, she's a believer for sure. And it sounds like her family is a big believer. Like she was saying, like her mom is a fan of you or her sister.
Something like that, yeah. Somebody in her family was a fan of mine, yeah, and had watched the shows. And... yeah, she had a number of stories of things that she had experienced. Weird stuff with her dog, too, at times. I mean, and everybody will kind of see it there. So she was, out of all of them, she was the one that was like, I'm there, you know what I mean? So she was freaked out when we were in the kitchen. And there was a couple kind of more definitive type bangs. One was we said, if you're upstairs, come to us, but let us hear you. And it was like, bang, I mean, loud, where it's like, what the fuck was that? And there was another one that was on the footsteps, and the steps are wooden. It's concrete floors, but the steps are wooden. And you could hear it was a wooden sound. It was like something impacted wooden. But, at the same time, because houses settle, you can never say that stuff's paranormal. So I kept doing, and you've seen me do this many times, Justin, where it's just like, you have to do something that leaves no doubt. We've seen this at the Bird Theater, right? We do that, speakers shut off, and like... So, right after I say this, Callen points out that and this was strange, outside in his backyard, he has like Christmas lights hung up. And they just stay on the whole time. And all of a sudden, they started completely flashing. And he's going, why are they flashing? And I'm like, they don't have a flash setting? He's like, no. And she looks at it, and she's just freaked. I mean,
were they flashing like normally or like sporadically?
Totally erratic.
They would dim almost completely even off, and then start like slowly dimming back on. And then sometimes they would like flash. And if you looked on the other side, they had the same Christmas lights on another fence, and those are just bright, just straight up bright on.
And it did it right as I said. You have to do something that leaves no doubt. And the funny thing was, it kept doing it from that moment that I said that until we wrapped it up. And then Brian pointed out, he goes, we just wrapped this up. And he goes, look at the lights. And we looked at them, they were just bright, just on, just steady on. Did not flicker a bit.
He didn't start questioning you guys if somebody like scaled the fence and set some kind of device up.
No, you know, I thought he would too. But I think the weirder thing is, though, to me, the most bizarre thing that happened is we charged our Ursa camera. It was like
I'll
fully
let you
charged.
talk about this. Take this.
We had it fully charged, and we show up, and you know what? I didn't even check the camera because it's a big camera. You know, those batteries, they'll stay fully charged. So I didn't even check, and I show up, and it doesn't even turn on. It's dead. It's just completely dead.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like thinking, like, is something wrong with the battery? You know, what's going on? So then when we started the interview, I had it plugged into the wall. And this was the craziest part, is the battery just kept dying. Like, mid-interview, it would just die, and I would have to, like, scramble to put it back on. It must have died, like, six times. And then it gets even stranger because Chad purchased a new Handycam so we could use for the ghost hunt, Sony. Yeah. And he charged the battery, you know, before the shoot.
Fully charged. 3.5 hours
dead.
of time.
Wouldn't even turn on. Totally dead.
You know, obviously that comes up all the time on paranormal shows, you know, that batteries go dead and stuff. And you know, the hard part of that is, like, I guess maybe from a production standpoint, I never want to legitimize it because I never want production people to go, hey man, I guess we can't shoot, you know, it's paranormal, because I always like to say no.
But understand, look, you know how new our Ursa camera is. This is essentially 2 brand new cameras.
Right.
Brand new batteries.
Yeah.
Totally.
That are, you know, when I left, I checked the Handycam, and it had 3.5 hours of shooting time on the battery, fresh battery, completely charged. You know, I mean, it was fully charged.
Well, that would correlate with the idea. I mean, obviously, electricity was drawing and the lights were flashing.
Exactly.
Right. Lights are flickering.
Yeah.
And it happened during the ghost hunt when you're asking for communication.
Right.
So, you know, these things are odd, you know? So, and I was, like, all these things, I always expect nothing to happen just because it's, how many times have we done this where nothing happens, you know? I mean, went upstairs and in his room, and nothing happened up there. It ended up being more of a joke session than anything else. But that kind of follows the nature and the vibe of the room. I mean, like...
What about the bedroom?
That's what I mean. Once we went to the bedroom, nothing happened up there.
Oh, what a shame.
Nothing...
Well,
I mean, Brian was hilarious up there.
Brian was hitting on Chad the entire time.
And I started fucking with him back. At one point, it was like, so it's normal at the end of every ghost hunt. We wind up in the bedroom, and, you know, where we all just, you know, fuck each other right when it's over, you know. And Brian's going, that's weird, Chet. I don't remember that being part of the deal, but did we agree to that when we did it, you know? And I also told him, too, I said, yeah, it's also mandatory at the end of every ghost hunt. It's just traditional that I get to choose one item of yours and take it home. It's mine now.
Yeah.
And any help that I offer will only work if this is complete, you know. And I was thinking, that's a nice Tesla you got out there. I'm going to take that Tesla home.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, oh man, Chad's gonna ask for his TV. No, he went straight for it.
Tesla. Yeah, you know. So now we were having a ton of fun doing it, and he was joking around the whole time doing it. But what I could see is that on several occasions when weird things were happening, this became very real to Brian Callen. This became very real to Brian, to the point at times where he was almost taking the lead. Where his wife, when the first knocking happened, she was like, oh my God, did that just happen? And he's like, yeah, it did. You know, you could see on his face that he was shocked, you know, by the things that were going on. So, you know, ultimately how it concluded is I told them, I was in the house a total of maybe 3 hours. Here's the thing. For me to say a place is haunted, in truly haunted cases, the great thing about it is there's no gray. It's black and white. You know, you'll know. If something, you know, if we're sitting here and Pinhead goes flying against the door, it's a haunted fucking house. You know what I mean? Right. And that's kind of what I explained to them. I said, we did experience a lot of things tonight that are odd. But there are odd things that happen in the world all the time that are just unexplainable. That doesn't mean that they're spiritual or that they're a ghost per se. My suggestion was that as far as the house being haunted, I just basically said to be continued. I can't say that I think it is. I can't say that I think that it isn't. I think it would take more time than 3 hours to determine this. And I just gave them, some techniques and some ideas and things they can do, wave recorders, video cameras, things that they can keep out on their own to try to further document things. And then it was interesting. They were both excited about, we were talking about scheduling like an actual ghost hunt somewhere else and them going with us, which would be a ton of fun. But like I said, it was such a 180 turn from where Brian was to where he was now. And I think that kind of said a lot for his character, that I think, to be open to it, after establishing yourself as such a hardened skeptic, I thought that was cool. I thought it was cool that he was open to say, well, hey, my child's saying it, my wife is saying it, I know this guy Chad who totally believes in it, maybe I need to be open to this,
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great time. It was a lot of fun. It was interesting. It was unique. And there's some weird stuff going on,
Yeah, no, I think too. He saw, ghost hunts aren't just these boring things where you sit in the dark and whatever. Like, it's exciting because something may or may not happen. You could joke around every now and then. It's not. It actually is a good time, and I think that was also another drive for him to want to do it again because, maybe next time something bigger will happen.
Right, and it's not a bunch of weirdos sitting around doing weird shit. No one's cutting their hand and doing fucking pagan ritual. You know what I mean? It's like, whether people realize it or not, the approach is always scientific because you're using real world rationale to try to determine what the fuck is happening. I've never gone. There's a reason why we don't use psychics, because to me, there's just like psychics need to be investigated. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I can't judge. I'm not psychic. I don't get it. So if a psychic says to me, like Justin's brought this up many times, there's a girl in the room, there's no way to know that. You know what I mean?
It's just uncomfortable. It's like, okay, what else?
It's uncomfortable.
I guess you just got to take their word for it.
Right. What does that ultimately mean to me? Right. So we don't use psychics and mediums. I would have to investigate a psychic if I could determine some way for sure that they had that ability. That would be one hell of a fucking tool to take into an investigation. But like I said, I've been around them, man. I mean, I have worked with what is supposedly the best in the world. Lorraine Warren, Chip Coffey. I have worked with, all of them. The guy from, I can never remember his name. He's from Haunting Evidence. But pretty much like literally the top 5 psychics I've worked with on multiple cases. And I can honestly tell you the only one that ever impressed me was Michelle Belanger. And it wasn't even anything that she nailed. It was because, how these shows work with the psychics, it's exactly what you would think it is. They take them into a house and they film them for hours, walking around guessing. And the average psychic, I would say, would hits, as far as accuracy goes, I would say anywhere from 2 to 5% of the time. Literally meaning 95 to 97% of their guesses out of 100 would be wrong. So it's a numbers game. Have them cold read the room and just keep asking. And then when they hit on something, you only see that footage on the shows.
Right. Yeah.
Michelle, admittedly, was higher than anybody else. She was consistently higher than anyone else as far as her accuracy. I would say maybe if everybody was 5%, she was 7%, consistently. But the fact that she was consistently more accurate is what made me think that, maybe there's something really here.
The only time I'd ever seen it was the tarot cards in New Orleans. Those things hit exactly right on with 3 people in a row.
Yeah, explain that situation again.
Well, those 2 guys, and they came out straight and said, "Listen, I am not psychic. Right. I don't have any special powers. I just know how to read tarot cards." And from their perspective, they work, right?
Right.
So we basically, I forget the order in which it went. I think it was like me, you, Joe. I think Joe was the last one. And
this was an event we did. We did an event in New Orleans, and they were a team that came And one of their guys said he reads tarot cards. Yeah. So go on as far as what they did.
Yeah, it's been such a long time ago. I don't remember the specific questions that they went through, but it was so spot on. It wasn't like you could just kind of, fit this in any box type scenario. It was so specific when they read you to your personality. So specific. And it's a drawing cards. It's not like, they could, I've kind of picked this vibe about Chad, so I'm going to lay these cards out. I mean, they're literally just shuffling cards, flipping them over, right? These three cards will determine. And when they got to Joe's, it was not necessarily nice, all the things they were saying, but it was right on, again, from what we know of Joe, right? So I'm like going, wow, man, this is not like one of those things where it's fairy in the clouds and I'm just going to read a lot of positive things about all of you guys,
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. That to me legitimized tarot cards, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Tarot cards, I put them right up there with. I remember that time too, and it was pretty accurate. I remember thinking about that. Yeah, it was. Who knows though? But for those interested in the Callen investigation, to wrap it all up, like I said, I have footage from the whole thing. We just shot some interviews and stuff tonight to kind of, put it in a nice little basket so everybody could see what went on. And, who knows what will come in the future. We'll see. I don't know if there'll be a follow-up or not, or if we will. I mean, I know they want to set up, another investigation away from their home. To try to get involved a little bit more. So
what about Brendan? He was the one who was the big believer.
Yeah, well, Brendan wasn't there. Yeah, he wasn't feeling well or something. So yeah, he didn't make it over.
It was a pretty murky night, man. It was like really spooky outside.
Yeah, it was super foggy and everything. Yeah, it was crazy. Like thick fog. Like, there was a couple patches I would hit. You couldn't see past the front of the car.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa. In fact, when we were driving there, we were driving past this school. I was so freaked out, man, because kids were out of class. You know what I mean? And at first I couldn't make out what it was. You said it too. You go, wait a minute, is that a school?
Yeah.
Because it was hard to make out what it was. I was like, yes. And then I started seeing all these kids walking the front. I told him, I said, dude, I'm just going to fucking clip somebody in a second. I know it, dude.
Well, to me, that would almost correlate with the movie we did, A Blood Red Sky, and the idea that everybody gets in a mind state, going into this. And that energy now starts.
Oh, fully. I think that was part of the reason why in the kitchen it was so much more freaky, because I think what freaked them out is when I said to them, we're going to do an EVP, and I explained what it is, and I said, so, you need to be aware of a couple things here. One, look, I've been into places that look like the mouth of hell, and nothing happens. And I've walked into Betty Crocker homes that look like a Norman Rockwell painting, and shit explodes, like paranormally speaking. What matters is we're about to ask whatever could be here, the dead, for the first time ever, we're about to make it okay for communication to occur. We're about ready to ask it to engage us. And I could see that was something that I felt like that was something that hit them pretty hard, especially Amanda. So when we started, the vibe was definitely there. I mean, she was like literally holding her ears. I mean, she was so.
She even missed
out.
one of the sounds because she had her ears closed.
Yeah, she was just freaked out.
She was just freaked out. Which I understand that it's the psychology of a ghost hunt is one of the most unique things. I mean, I've seen people who are so into it, but like that's how I used to be. Remember, I'd be so into it, but terrified though. I mean, I would, when I first started, like, really doing this, I would never be the last person in the line. Fuck that shit. I'm being in the middle. I'm not going to tail. That. I mean, I would hold Joe's hand. I would grab people's jackets and make them hang on to me. If people got too far in front of me, fuck that shit. Get your ass back here.
It's funny.
I mean, I was so scared back in the day.
It's odd, as odd as it may sound, man, I've totally forgotten about that. Like, that now I think that there's so many times now after doing this for 10 years or however long, or I guess longer than that, if you can count back to when you grew up in your house, but
over 20.
You start, it's not like you get, it's like anything else, man. You've seen the moon, you're not like, wow, that's the moon, anymore. So
you become acclimated,
yeah, and not only that, you start looking at it, especially when we had to do at the end of our night of our tour, is like, you know, because you're so tired, and that's what you're looking forward to is the sleep, not the ghost hunt, you know?
Yeah.
And you almost forget, man, of how magical and freaky it is when you're starting out, you know, when this is your first time.
I mean, do you remember, I mean, when... look, obviously the White Lady in Monroe, Connecticut was terrifying.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I mean, dude, there was some hand-holding going on there between everybody. I mean, and people took off sprinting. We saw the White Lady of Monroe Cemetery. We saw her flying through the trees, bro.
No bullshit.
I heard the story.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, and I was the first person to go, guys, stop. 11 o'clock. And dude, when I first saw it, I knew it was there, man, and I didn't want to fucking look. I was just like, oh God, she's right fucking there.
Dude, that's what, before you said something, I saw something up there and I thought, there's no way in fucking hell I'm looking up. I'm not looking up because what I would want to believe is this is my imagination making something look like a white lady in my peripheral vision right now. So I'm going to stay with that right now because I'll lose my shit if I look up and it's really what I'm seeing right now.
Did you guys run away all holding hands or
sprinted in every different direction known to man? I mean, because I knew it was there and I saw it and I looked for probably 2 seconds and went, oh God, guys, stop. Because I fucking knew for sure.
Oh, man.
And I go, everybody, 11 o'clock right here. And everybody looked up about 1 second later simultaneously.
I don't know. We had like 5 or 6 or 7. I forget how many guys. And it was just all guys sprinting, and you could completely lose balance and approprioception. You're running into fucking concrete, tripping, hitting people. I mean, you have no... it's amazing how it's almost like when we did BBgun Wars. When you're in a massive panic, you don't have that normal ability that you do to just step over.
I'll tell you what was terrifying about the night. We had the map to Monroe, the Monroe Cemetery, and this is the same cemetery that Ed Warren had spent 16 days in a row there filming before he caught the White Lady on 16 millimeter film, black and white. Yeah, so he's got spindle film, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it seemed like no matter where we turned, we couldn't find the place. And we're going, what the fuck? It should be right here. So this freaked me out with him. It set the tone for me. We stopped at the gas station. We were going to go home because we couldn't find it. And as I'm walking out, Frankie goes, dude. And I go, what? And he goes, the entrance is right there where we got to go to walk the back because we had to walk through a forest to get to it. And he goes, how the fuck did that just show up there? We've driven by it over and over again. I'm like, I don't know. So I go to the car, and Justin had just like woken up out of the sleep.
Well,
he looks like terrified.
We'd been up for a long time. I don't know if we'd flown into town. We were going to do this film. We stayed up late talking about it. Then, last second. This is
right after 9/11.
This is like when we're your age, man. And, we have all the energy in the world, and we're like, now we're going to go to the White Lady Cemetery, which was not like around the corner. It was a drive. So we drove for quite a while, and I'm like, getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I don't know when we're going to actually get there. So I must have dozed off, dude. And
it's like 4 days after 9/11, by the way. Like, 9/11 just happened. The first day they opened up flights, we flew in. That night we were hanging out together. So I look at Justin, and he's got this. Justin, again, is a pretty together dude, and he looks fucking terrified. I mean, he looks terrified.
Well, I remember I was like out, my head's on the thing, and I didn't even like talking about the story because it was such a freaky thing, but it involved my daughter. And
the story you told me is that you fell asleep, started dreaming. He was rocking his daughter, right?
Wow.
And she opened her eyes when she had green eyes, and she started going like, or something like that. It was like the devil, like the devil was in his daughter. And he gets this dream right before we go to the Monroe Cemetery. Dude, that was one of the most freaked out I've ever seen you.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, especially having a daughter now too, I could really imagine what you must have been going through, because I think of holding my daughter as well, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if I had that dream that my daughter was like possessed by the devil or something, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So that happened right before. It's a lot of weird things were going on there, but Yeah, I don't know how we got on this, but that was some terrifying shit. Oh, we're just talking about in general going to haunted locations and having fear. I mean, fear back then was a major thing. I mean, even, we had been to all kinds of places, but the first time we showed up to the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, this is before it was a big tourist trap. That was some terrifying stuff, Justin. I mean, I remember the first time we stepped inside that building, I was like, wow, this is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Still to this day, the one we've never done that we still sounds pretty freaky to me was the whole Dudleytown one,
Because no one could get there. Yeah, they won't let anybody in. Yeah. If you don't know what this is, Dudleytown, it is an area in Pennsylvania that is considered to be the most satanic evil location in America. Beyond haunted, evil, satanic, like evil is there. The stories are, well, supposedly there was a town called Dudleytown, and the remnant supposedly still exists there. And, this was back in the colonization days,
Yeah, the Pilgrim colonization.
Yeah, and the people went crazy and became cannibals, killed and ate each other and shit. And they, left it there. The people were so afraid of it, they were just don't even go in there. No one ever steps foot back in there. And the family that still owns it to this day doesn't allow anyone there, yet they've never done anything with the property either. They just, keep it there. And there are people that claim that have trekked in there on their own, right? Park and went in there. And the stories are that people go crazy, go clinically put into a fucking, halfway house crazy.
And that's the thing that's almost scarier to me, maybe, is that part of it. Because the minute you start questioning your own sanity, okay, even the story about that thing about my daughter in the car, I mean, that makes you question, I got to have control of my mind, okay? Give me at least that. Because if I can't have control of my mind, I'm really freaked,
right?
Right. Because so yeah, man. But the thing that always sticks in my mind with the questioning of that, and especially when he talked about it, I'm thinking, come on, the whole witch thing. Obviously, at that point, what makes more sense, the whole witches being burned at the stake and all that stuff, was more the fact that at that point sex and everything else was so taboo that they would lock you up, that if it were to happen where supposedly some in the male dominated society, he could just claim that these girls that are raped, claiming that he raped them or did this, they're witches, and that was a quick way of trying to switch the branding here. I'm not the bad guy. They're the witches. So,
we almost did Dudleytown on Paranormal State. We almost had the producers. The thing is, the only way to do it is to just break the law. And basically, we I'm sure they will deny it, but we had private conversations with the producers of A&E saying, listen, is there any way that legally you could air the footage if we just went in on our own, got it, shot it ourselves, and just handed it off to you? And then you didn't shoot it, right? You have the footage. And basically what it came down to is, if they were a news organization, yes. But they weren't. A&E was entertainment. So if it's entertainment, then no, you have to have legal clearances.
Right.
Because there was no, it wasn't presented in a news, worthy type of way. But we did have conversations about potentially going there. And we tried to go there during Rising, and I talked to the person who owned it, and they were like, we don't care. No one is going on that property, period.
I don't know. I don't remember the sequence if the Blair Witch came out before that or after, but I just remember thinking in my head.
Oh, before, way before.
Okay, that was how I envisioned that whole situation.
Dudleytown, yeah.
Because, obviously the Blair Witch was not, it wasn't like a documentary or anything. It was a fictional just story to make you believe it was, but... to me, same thing. When you start questioning your sanity in that, and you're attaching to that, you're that, and especially in that setting, man, there's something spooky about old bones of a city, of buildings.
Big time. Big
in
time,
the forest, just in the middle of nowhere.
It's crazy. It's we had a guy there, Frankie, that we know is a filmmaker, Frankie Mosca. There, we were actually working on his film. Frankie Mosca. And he claimed to have firsthand friends that went there, and today are in a halfway house. I mean, because he was into the paranormal, being from New Haven, Connecticut. How could you not be? That's like the Warrens' backyard. And he had been in their museum. He had been to Ed's, all of it. It was the one place where he was like,
He won't go.
Yeah, I will not go. He goes, you want to go? Go yourself. I'm not going.
How come you guys didn't go yourselves?
Well, I think there's an issue with finding it or something. I can't
Finding
remember
it
what
was one, but the second issue was just
No,
that.
no.
you know?
I think it was that. That was just it. I think because Chad said at the time, part of this is experience, man. He was saying I'm not afraid to do anything, you know. And at the time, I didn't think I was, man. But again, a big switch was that thing about my daughter. That gets you. I'm telling you, man. When your mind gets changed, your framework, your mind, you start really, you know.
So you have a real experience change. We didn't go that night, and part of it was he wouldn't take us. But I think after he started telling those stories. Look, when the ball game changes when someone says, I heard a legend, and then someone says, I have a friend that's in the halfway house.
Right. So you wouldn't go today if you got the opportunity?
I would go. I would go today.
I've always been interested.
Yeah.
In that,
Would
man.
I be really fucking terrified? Yeah. Would I take some extra precautions? Yeah. But would I go? Yeah. Because I have a real issue with the idea that, I don't know. This is a bigger conceptual thing I'm not going to get into, but like I just think, man, this is mankind's Earth. We control. You know what I mean? This is our domain. Nothing should be able to keep us out of a location. You know, but
it's something about the whole idea too. It's like when we did Ghost Prophecies on A&E, and the core concept of that was Room 18.
Right.
I mean, and you're like going. You know, I'm sure
Ghost
there's
is not
nothing
gonna
wrong,
kill me,
but
you
what
know what I
if?
mean? Right.
Dude, am I going to take the chance? Because, you know, supposedly people had died a week later or a few days later, and you're like going, yeah.
We kept calling it the 1% chance.
Right.
On the show we did the Ghost Prophecies. It was a spinoff for Paranormal State. We had went to the St. James Hotel in New Mexico. And it basically, the story was this room 18 had been padlocked since like 93 or something. After a series of people stayed there, had a paranormal experience, left, and they all died within a week after. So on the episode, my thing was to go there, open up room 18, spend the night, and then see if you die. You know what I mean? Which was creepy. And it was creepy because I was got the key to it.
I was wondering what that is. I was like, wait, why did they put that on our keys?
It's not 18, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But the whole time you're sitting there, going, well, this is stupid. Ain't no ghost going to kill someone. But what Justin was talking about is we kept saying, what if there's that 1% chance that this is real? Like, you could be literally putting your life... Dude, I'll tell you what. Out of a lot of the stuff that I do usually doesn't freak Laura out. Laura was freaked out by that one.
Well, her mom had died not too...
Well, her mom had just died, but Laura was just kind of saying, why at all would you just, when you could lose your life, is that, like, why play with this? Kind of like, in this world, you get what you ask for, you know what I mean? She was really freaked out about that investigation. That was a very real part of that episode, too. When I got home, she was so... I'll tell you this. It was the only ghost hunt that I ever been on that I traveled to that I didn't fly when I could have home. I drove home.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking I am not putting my life in somebody else's hands on a plane. I'm like, I would feel a lot better just in control of my fate.
The chances of you dying in a car are
way higher.
Yeah.
I know that. But it was my fate. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, I was in control of it, you know? That one fucked me for a while.
What is that called? Like if you do something before every game because you believe it's
like a ritual?
Superstition.
Yeah.
Superstition.
It's the superstition stuff that really, I think, that sticks with you.
And I'm a massively superstitious person, big time. When I was in baseball, I used to drive people fucking nuts with the weird shit that I would do before. The same routine in the bat. I always kept
tap the bat twice on your shoe.
Oh yeah, no, well I always did it on my left foot. I'd always keep one bat out of the batter's box until the pitcher had both feet on the thing. I always kept a quarter in my right shoe because my freshman year I had a game where I went 5 for 5 playing varsity, and a quarter was in my pocket when I got a soda. I had a hole in my pocket. It fell out of my pocket and fell into the side of my shoe.
Huh.
And I went 5 for 5 that game, and I associated it with this quarter being in my shoe. So there's a couple games where I didn't have the quarter, and I freaked and did bad because it's in my brain. You know what I mean? Until I finally realized that that's the worst thing you can do for those things is to give superstition because it works both ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it happens in golf. We call it the hibs or whatever, where you just, the shanks, you know what I mean? Where you just cannot hit the fucking ball, you know? It's a really weird thing, but anyways, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Good convo. Everybody be on the lookout for the Callen'S footage coming up soon. We're going to take a break right now. When we come back, Stevie's going to take us down the rabbit hole. We're going to see what's going on with current events before I have a hell of a documentary to tell you guys about in movie reviews. We'll get to it right when we come back with more Paramerican Radio.
Paramerican Radio will be right back after this commercial break with even more dope-ass shit.
6 hours ago, a guy that I befriended about a year ago named Craig Powell sent me several pieces of film of events, strange things that he captured. The reason I'm so tired right now is because I have watched this footage for 6 hours straight. Either Craig and his team have pulled off one of the most advanced, complex hoaxes that the paranormal field has ever known, or the footage that I'm looking at, if this footage is real, and I will find out if it is, then Craig has definitively proven that ghosts exist.
You believe in ghosts?
I believe that there is strange stuff out there. Whether you want to call it a ghost, a spirit, I don't know what they are. That's what we're trying to figure out.
So whether you believe it or you're a skeptic, when spooky things happen, who are you going to call? This guy, Ghost Hunter Craig Powell from Western Sydney Paranormal Research. G'day, Craig.
On February 22nd, 2013, the Australian government emails civilian Craig Powell with an unusual request.
So you're out there debunking ghost claims?
Well, we try to. We always look for a rational explanation before we look into the paranormal stuff.
Due to countless ghost sightings reported on the government-owned grounds of Sydney Harbour's Cockatoo Island, Powell was offered unlimited, around-the-clock access to the island in order to conduct an extensive paranormal investigation to determine if past claims of paranormal activity could be discounted or substantiated.
I need to be in that situation. I need to be there. I need to know the surrounding environment. What we need to do is we need to be on site and we need to have a look at it properly for ourselves.
Interested in the paranormal claims and aware of Cockatoo Island's dark past as a convict prison, Powell accepted the offer to lead his team in what would become the first paranormal investigation in history to be officially sanctioned by the Australian government.
What we're trying to do is figure out what it is, why it's happening, how it happens, why some people see it, why some people don't see it.
The WSPR investigation would last nearly 2 years, in which the activity experienced and the evidence captured would change the lives of all involved forever. As Powell and his team were unaware from the onset of the investigation that someone, something, an entity was waiting for them.
Same things, but it was at exactly the same time. Oh, fuck! Jesus Christ!
An entity that allowed its voice to be heard. An entity that would reveal its own name. An entity that on countless occasions allowed its unique abilities to be filmed.
Oh, Jesus!
Thanks, sir!
That was awesome. That was really bright.
There were no shadows. It didn't cast shadows when it flashed. It's one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen with my own eyes.
And before the investigation came to a close, this entity did something completely unexpected. From only feet in front of a recording camera, the entity decided to show Craig and his team exactly what a ghost really looks like.
Thanks, sir. I asked him to do something down
So the camera was actually sitting in this far corner, and just out through the door there is where the surf footage came from.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
What did you experience at Cockatoo Island?
I witnessed the lights.
You witnessed the lights?
Yes.
Okay, so you're
From the
telling
start.
me that you and a bunch of people sat in a room with no power, and
That's
the
correct.
room was lighting up.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, when you say that, I feel like I had a connection. You're talking about like you feel like you met a spirit out there, and you formed a bond of some kind. Okay. You do understand this sounds fucking crazy.
To everybody else, I don't really care.
Do you believe this is a ghost doing this?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have zero fraction of doubt in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long have you been in the team?
About 5 years.
So you know these guys well.
Yeah, I know them really well. I know them really well. Too well.
No chance anybody on your team faked it?
If I ever believe that one of our team members faked it, I'll throw him off the fucking balcony.
Really?
Nah. Why would we go out and do that?
Are you guys paid?
No.
Would you guys like to get paid?
Well, it'd be nice.
Sure. There's just so many reasons to hoax. There's so many reasons to hoax.
Give me a good one.
Make your life better.
Why?
It could bring fame, fortune.
And look, and it could, but you know, there's been times where our kids have missed out on stuff because we've put money in towards Whisper. We can't go on holidays because we've got
all
Whisper.
great reasons to hoax.
No, but this just goes to, yeah, it could be, but you know, we all have our paid jobs and then there's the love job.
What do you think's on that film?
I think it's the spirit of someone.
My neighbor is the best software animator. He is the guy that's hired to create Transformers. As one of the elite animators working in Hollywood today, Patterson specializes in computer-generated imagery, also known as CGI. Routinely hired as a senior animator on major studio feature films with budgets in excess of $100 million, Patterson's understanding and ability to digitally manipulate film is amongst the best in the world. Here's a few examples of films you may know that feature Patterson's CGI work and abilities.
There were many changes. Some you could see, some you couldn't. Hair had started growing in all sorts of places.
So he can take that footage, and he can tell me without a shadow of a fucking doubt if that has been fucked with, if it's fake, or anything else.
Do you know what? I've been waiting for someone to say that, man, because I don't have the ability to do that myself.
I do.
Well, let's do it.
Don't fret, precious, I'm here. Step away from the window and go back to sleep.
You have a team full of people who are almost near tears saying the whole experience changed their life.
If they're all lying, they have fucking Marlon Brando acting skills. You know, I mean, like, everything you're taught as a team, right, as a ghost hunter, they did everything right. And the reason you're taught these things is because these things, if you film something like that, the protocol will lead you to proof and not evidence. These guys followed the protocol. This is the most definitive ghost evidence and ghost case that will ever be presented. There is nothing else I could think of that even compares to this.
Thanks, sir.
Hello, my friends. Chad Kalick here, director of Sir No Face. I am proud to say that the Sir No Face Lives tour is currently being planned. Stay tuned for more updates in the very near future.
And we are back with more Paramerican Radio. It is time to tear the lid off the rabbit hole and climb down it to find Mr. Zilberman. What do you got for us, Stevie?
All right. Well, my first one is, so 2 years ago, there was an incident where 2 Chilean Navy officers filmed and followed an extraterrestrial craft, or what they believed was an extraterrestrial craft.
Okay.
And how the Chilean government works is when anything like this happens, they turn it over to this group called the CEFAA. And it's just a group of professionals and scientists, this and that. and they try to determine what it was that's in question.
Right.
And this happened 2 years ago. It took them 2 years to do this investigation, and just today they released the 9-minute video of that the Navy pilot shot, and their conclusion was they don't know what it was. That it was not. I'll give you the exact quote. The exact quote is pretty spot on. They said that the Chilean, the general, he said, "We do not know what it was, but we do know what it was not."
Right.
And
do you have the footage?
I do. I mean, it's 9 minutes, but the most interesting thing that happened out of the footage is that the craft started emitting something out of it. It was spraying something into the sky.
I've seen this footage before. Like, as far as like when this was first reported.
Right. Well.
Yeah.
So
wow.
well, I mean, yeah. So the gist of it was that after the investigation, that's what the news article is that it's the conclusion, and the conclusion is
they don't know.
They don't know what it was, but they know what it wasn't.
Dude, again, another thing in the news where officials are now saying, I'm starting to think this whole conspiracy theory that there's going to be a fake alien invasion is like going to happen, man. I really do. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Think about this, man. A while ago, it was unheard of for officials in any government to come forward and say, yeah, we don't know what it was, but we know what it wasn't, you know? Incredible. I mean, incredible.
I just think it's great that they followed this for 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, like this wasn't like, you know, for a month, 2 months, whatever. 2 years.
Yeah.
And finally, you know, they just determined they have no idea.
Yeah.
They just really don't.
Well, that's why I was floored, like when the CIA documents came out and they were like, yeah, there were only 100 instances that we couldn't decipher what it was. I'm like, 100? That's a shitload. I mean, considering that it would take one verifiable one to prove aliens were coming here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I forget what the whole explanation is. What's the doctor, Dr. Greer, Stephen Greer, right?
Yep.
And his whole movement is called the
CE5. That's where they bring, through mental telepathy, they bring aliens into...
But it's the Exposure Project or the something project. What is it?
Disclosure?
Disclosure, that's what it is. So the Disclosure Project, with all those videos and all the footage of the interviews of the different... That's, again, one of those rabbit holes when you start going down and you watch all these interviews with all these credible people, you start getting the point going, wait a minute, these are actual, real, credible people. They're either senators, astronauts.
And boatloads of them. Yeah, that's the thing. It becomes silly to the point where it's like, this is obvious. It's kind of like global warming, you know what I mean? Where it's like, is it happening? It's stupid at this point to question it, you know?
Well, you would have to assume that all these people are, I mean, what's in it for them to lie about all this stuff? I just don't, they are people with reputations. And to come forward, you have to be pretty sure yourself.
Sure.
Somebody with a reputation on the line to go out and state all these things, you know?
What's in it for them to lie? Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing. I think it's just anybody who's ever took one look up at the sky, you know, you would have to be crazy to think, to me, that we are the only planet in the universe that not only has life, but that we're the most advanced. I just don't buy it.
Well, my next piece of news, you know, I just wanted to kind of follow up with this whole with the alien topic, and this happens all the time. So the ISS caught another, this time a megaship on camera, and
I've seen what you're about to show me. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
and it's interesting because a lot of conspiracy theorists are claiming that as soon as it shows up, NASA cuts the feed and replaces it.
And they do it all the time.
Yeah. And check it out.
So
cigar-shaped.
The feed is coming from NASA for
the
ISS feed.
International Space Station.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
I've already seen this. Check this out, Justin. Yeah, I got this in my news thing. Yeah, see the lights blow and everything? And you'll see NASA will just cut it, and then you come back on with like a fake feed, There's a 24/7 feed you could watch off the ISS. It's there right now. You can go watch it. And shit has been showing up there, especially a lot in the last couple of years. It's been like regular.
Right.
It's gone,
The odd part is why wouldn't NASA just always put a fake feed up then, you know?
Conditioning. I think this is all because they want us to know that this is coming. disclosure's coming, alien race is coming. This is a real easy way to do it.
Yeah.
Pepper in sightings, get us all talking about it. Dude, there's footage that of the last spacewalk we did, where they're out there working on the ship, and shit behind their heads is flying around, and you could see where they see it, and they'll like stop and look up and grab the camera and move the camera over away from it. So they're in on it up there, you know, like they know shit's out there. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that one's so interesting because like, what could that have been? You know, that wasn't a streak. At first glance, if somebody shows you a picture of that, they'll be like, all right, that's a streak. But you could see, you know, things are moving in there.
Yeah.
And then it just vanishes. You know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was a bizarre one to me for sure.
I honestly think it's the same reason. Like, I just talked about this in the last podcast. How we're hearing these new news stories all the time. Slow conditioning.
Yeah.
Slow conditioning to what's coming.
Well, they've explained that. I've heard that talked about. That, you know, I mean, the thing that's confusing is some people are saying that some of this, Stephen Greer was saying some of this is purposely being done, not just even for conditioning, but there will be actual fake. So it's almost like how we've gotten every single war. You know, there's been some fake attack, or they've
false flag.
They've done the own attack to give us some reason.
False flag, right.
So he's basically saying that that's going to come down the pipe with this whole alien things. That we're going to come to some war, and this all sounds insane, I know, but it's fascinating.
So it's going to be a fake war.
But it goes back to Reagan's comment. Yeah, Reagan basically made the comment that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said in an interview, in a, I think it was to the United Nations, it was a really weird comment. Reagan said, I would, you know, wonder if we were ever under attack from an alien race, would we essentially forget our differences as human beings and come together and unite as mankind against the one global force? Right, exactly. And, you know, it'd be very easy for a conspiracy theorist right now to start piecing those.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I say bring it on. Bring on a false flag attack. Bring the world together. I don't see any problem with it at all. Literally. You know,
I say,
if that's what it takes.
I want to see some real motherfucking aliens, man. I just watched this story last night, this guy that was interviewed. And again, it was one of these stories, he just put a book out. And he did weather conditioning for the government. And he was allowed access to this base, I guess, in Colorado. That's an alien base, but they work for us. And they're all the tall whites, the Nordic Greys. And he they lived 10 years longer than us. But at a certain age, as they get older, they grow bigger. They don't age and wither, and their skeletal structures grow bigger than their organs, and that's how they end up having natural death. It's at the end of like 400 or 600 years. And he was talking about having full communication with them.
So it's
and
400 to 600 years is what
that's what he was saying. Yeah,
that's how old they live.
I'd heard it was like way longer than us.
Yeah, he was saying it was. Well, he said 10 times longer than us.
So
I think he said, when they get to be like 400 to 600 years old, that's when they start growing again. And then they ultimately die when they're in natural death, when their skeletal structure grows too big. But he was talking about how he also had communication with what they referred to as the Roswellian Greys. And that's all mental telepathy communication. And he said he didn't understand how he was doing it until he met him. And basically, he could do it. It was kind of like when I told you to move the pencil thing. If I can just figure out how, but I know I can.
Yeah.
Same thing. He said when he met the Greys, that he could do it. And suddenly he just knew how. It was like second nature when he was talking to them. Like they unlocked something in him. And he's just on this news channel just talking about that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and his wife was there with him. And it was like, you're the craziest son of a bitch ever. Or this is true. You know what I mean? This is true. And why is it that all these higher level people, you know, like, you know, the Canadian Defense Minister, you know, Paul Hellyer, you know, are coming out saying, you know, yes, not only are they here, they all specifically point to the U.S. And they say the U.S. is working with the tall whites specifically. And then you look at it, it's like the U.S. also runs the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Isn't it unique?
You know what's fascinating about this to think of? Because the thing I'd heard another guy talking about was that these alien, and I don't know if it was the tall whites aren't the only supposed species, right? So I don't know if it was them. I thought it was that supposedly live like an immensely long time, thousands and thousands, 40,000 years, whatever it was, right? Now imagine. There's a certain thing we take for granted. There's a reset of consciousness every time one of us dies, 80 to 100 years at max, right? Imagine if you lived and you could continually learn, and not only just you, but us, society, over thousands of years.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, how would that change our perception of things, our operation?
It would change everything, obviously, yeah. I mean, in a dramatic fashion, you know? That shit's even hard to even fathom, you know what I mean? But I just think all this stuff, that's crazy footage. I love that footage because it's clearly something's there, you know? So, yeah. I don't know. What else you got, man? Give me one more.
All right. Well, this next one is this woman. So I believe it was weeks ago that she said she got clawed by a ghost and her house is completely haunted. Okay. And the next day it went away. So this is kind of a follow-up on it. Now she's posting these like pictures and videos of what's going on. And so the video, I don't even know if I want to show you guys. Like, I don't believe it. It's an orb. I mean, it looks more believable than most orbs you see because there's nothing else there. But the picture that she posted, I thought was pretty interesting.
Well, just to establish this really quickly before you show us, the orb phenomenon, 99.99% of the time is nothing more than dust, moisture, bugs, anything that reflects light directly back into the camera. And when it's close to the camera can't focus on it, so it creates a round circle because it's out of focus. That is what orbs are. But the orb phenomenon is real. It's akin to low-level lightning. It's been reported, seen, photographed after earthquakes, and they have been seen in haunted locations for some reason. So let's see this girl's picture of it or her video.
All right. Well, so I'll show you two pictures. She claims that there's like a dog or some animal ghost there, that there's like a woman ghost there, and she did research on the property, and it turns out that one of the owners, he hung himself there.
Okay.
So and that's she's claiming, but anyway, so that's the girl.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting.
She's just like sitting there. Okay.
Right. I mean, you can kind of make out the face, and then here's a picture of the dog.
That's a ghost or a real dog?
No, it's a ghost.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's either fake or real. You know what I mean? Like there's a dog there. That's for sure.
Right. And you know what? I'll show you the orb footage.
Well, it's something that looks like a dog. The thing is, it's the same thing. Sometimes you can see a cloud formation or whatever that, like, you could swear somebody had to make that, right? I mean, but coincidentally, things could. I mean, how many different movements in the clouds are happening? I'm sure there's going to be at some point stumble upon a perfect picture of.
Well, so
Jesus
a lot of people were saying that the reason that she's doing all this was because she wanted to move out of the house. But she's saying she loves the house. She wants to stay there. She's paying for it, but she's living with her mom right now. So either she's crazy or this stuff is really happening.
She doesn't have a GoFundMe page, does she? Where she's saying.
Well, if she does, it doesn't say.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Where is this at?
This is in New York.
Oh, wow.
I believe. Yeah. So here, check this out.
Complete reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Complete reflection. Yeah. Complete reflection. Yeah. Look, it's like anything. Whenever I think I'm like Justin. Because I've experienced things and had people tell me I'm crazy, I'm so quick to just I think Dave Chappelle's right. Like the worst thing you could label someone as crazy because it's dismissive. You know what I mean? I'm going to say she's crazy. What I'm going to say is she's wrong about that.
You know what I mean? She doesn't necessarily have to be crazy. People always misinterpret things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can have somebody at a really high educational and understanding level that's lived many years. And you can have a kid that's who's they're green.
What I would say is, in regard to the orb, she's wrong. I mean, it's a natural artifact that occurs, and it is what it is. The rest of her stuff, their personal experiences. You'd have to be there to know. You know, I don't want to say she's wrong. I don't know. Maybe something clawed the shit out of her. Maybe because of that, she's now reading stuff into very natural events, which is very common, where real things happen, and now you're so fucking freaked out that you're applying paranormal, you know, thoughts and ideas to natural events. That would be my guess in this case, is if something real happened, she's now just in paranoidville, you know what I mean? She's just scared of everything now. And,
because all the stuff that she's documenting is after the claw.
Right.
The claw mark.
Right. Which is very common. That happens, bang, she believes whatever happened to be real, and now she's finding... Right. Her mind's working overdrive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Working overtime now. Very common. Very common. If I could sit her down right now, I'd be like, sweetheart, you need to take a deep breath. Take a deep breath.
The hard part, you know, I think the thing that really raises the suspicion level to me is after, you know, in normal life, people are very selective on who they pick as their friends and, you know, who they hang out with, whatever, right? And because those are the people you're exposed to most of the time, you almost forget there are serial killers in the world. There are thieves in the world. There are, you know, just people that are pulling big scams, like the scam people we've run into along the way, right? Yeah. So I think, you know, because when we hold events, because we are open to so many people, there are going to be a percentage of people, and we've run into them before.
They give you total whack stuff.
Right. Or potentially, or we've seen people rob us before on events, you know?
Yeah.
Happened in Australia. Some dude just made out with a bunch of shit, and people kind of saw, but it was like it wasn't really that valuable of stuff. Right. He just shoved it under his shirt, and you know, it's just stuff like that. You're like going, man, it sucks, but there are people that you can't trust, and they come out of the woodwork, man, when you put on big events.
And what sucks too is it's like 99% of everybody there is good, and then you have this one person that fucking just ruins it. You know what I mean? That makes you. It's like it's why they have the whole one bad apple spoils the bunch type of thing. You know, it makes it hard to now trust other people. You know, but. I don't know. Hopefully, someone helps this girl and just tells her to calm down a little bit and take it.
Could be you, man. You could reach out to her. Maybe.
There you go. Maybe I will. So, alrighty. Tell me what's going on in the real world outside. Let's close the rabbit hole door here and let me know what's going on in the regular working world today.
All right. So, Facebook made a major policy update, which is kind of a complete 180 from what it used to be, and now they prohibit companies and organizations from using Facebook and Instagram services for surveillance.
Really?
Yeah, complete 180. Because before, you know, they were known for working with law enforcement, this and that. Now it's not. And the thing, too, is they did not go into detail about what this entails, what this is about. But, I mean, it's pretty open. Like, they don't want NSA, CIA, whatever, using their platforms to spy on people.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome. It's
huge
totally against It's totally against the nature and the direction that everything's going. I'm very surprised that would occur under a Trump presidency. Very surprised.
I mean, maybe that's why if Zuckerberg is largely against him.
Maybe they're just telling you that. You know what I mean? Who knows? But it's pretty big policy.
But I think you're right. I think it does have to do with Trump being in office because Zuckerberg is very publicly against him.
Right.
Very publicly. You know.
Yeah.
Well,
fucking thumbs up Zuckerberg, man.
You know what's interesting? My mother works for the Omaha Police Department, the Major Crimes Unit, right? And she says these criminals have no idea. Like, through social media and everything else, they target in on them. They literally have programs that will follow and tell them where they are, what's going on, who they talk
Snowden,
to.
The movie Snowden, which it was accurate, the information they used was real simple. I mean, like your Facebook, like all that shit. Oh, I mean, you know, there is no... Everything you have with the password they could crack into. You know, they're using your phone to listen to you, to shoot video, to turn your camera on. Like, all of it. Yeah,
well,
crazy.
A lot of people aren't aware that all these things are settings on your phone. Like, for instance, when you take a photo, you don't see it. It's not on that photo anywhere, but it's digitally written into the photo of where it was taken, GPS coordinates, what date, all that information, you know?
Yeah.
And it does come out when you post it in certain... I can't remember what...
What's that data called again?
You have to have settings on.
The metadata.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, I'm becoming less and less of a fan of Facebook as it continues to become more like MySpace and becomes more video and photo integrated, which I think is the wrong direction for it. And I'm becoming less and less a fan of their advertising machine as it's becoming more and more selfish and more just all about them making the most money, period. It's less advertiser friendly, but I fucking love this. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's good to know that there's a company out there that would say that. I love it when I hear companies stand up to the government, like when Apple said no to unlocking the iPhone. You know?
Yeah.
Because they're like, unlock it. Well, why? Just because you fucking said we have to? No.
You know, at the same
what I mean?
point, if you look at how much... don't even think of Facebook as just Facebook. I mean, Facebook's bought Instagram. They own so many different...
Well, this is for Instagram also.
Okay, right. So the point is that Facebook, the company, actually owns so many different social media platforms and connections and whatever. It's more about... And if you look what's happened in other countries, how people who are in a closed government environment who are not allowed, they were using back-end things like Facebook or whatever to communicate with you. That's what happened during, was it Egypt and the whole...
Arab Spring?
Yeah. So what's fascinating to me about it is just more so you have this kid in college who has an idea and he knows it's going to work and it's going to be a connection of people. And you know what I mean? And look at where it's taken things, man. I mean,
what's funny with him is one of the biggest disbelievers on Facebook in the beginning was him. He thought about selling it when it was first evaluated at $2 million. There's emails that have came out where he basically talks about all the reasons why it won't last and why Friendster would overtake them and all this stuff. And obviously he was wrong.
It has lasted because he's at the helm. Because the modifications and directions and choices he chooses to go with it have continually made it a valuable commodity. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's because he's evolved with understanding that same idea he had when he saw, who are you dating? Like, he flipped out, like, that's it. You know,
that's the one thing he was always good at. Is he realized right away that people want to be a star. You know, they want to share their life. They want to. Facebook gives you a way. It's the front of your store for your life. You know what I mean? And everyone wants to put out the best image possible, you know. And I think he recognized that very, very early on.
Not everybody. Some people are like, my life sucks.
Well, not everyone, but by and large, you know what I mean?
No, I don't mean like. I mean it more so like it always amazes me that people do that. You know, why would you sit there and totally degrade yourself as just a horrible person in a public environment for everybody to? Yeah.
Well, most of the time it's kids doing shit like that, you know. But anyways, I mean, look, I think that's really cool. I mean, that they would do that. Let's hope they stick to it and it's real. Time will tell. But, yeah, I think you're right. The fact that Zuckerberg doesn't like Trump gives us hope.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
agreed.
What else you got, man?
Well, this next one is, I think this would be really relatable to people. I mean, have you ever had like a cough or ache, whatever, and you look up online like WebMD and you see like the worst possible scenario, you're like, you're looking up a cough and now you think you have cancer.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this fourth year med student at Harvard, he thought, you know what, like we have apps for everything. Why don't we have an app that can diagnose what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So
symptoms, right?
Yeah. So he created this app, and basically, you enter in basic information like age, gender, where you live, and you say what the issue is, and it uses like an algorithm to give you what they think is wrong with you.
Right.
And I think it's light years away from WebMD because WebMD is so general. Everyone's different, and this is more specific. This could save you a trip to the doctor. I think that the direction where this app is going is great. It really is. It's amazing.
The odd part is actually Zuckerberg and his, I don't know if it was CEO or president, started a company. It's called like Meta or something, and it's the whole point of this company. And they set it not as a nonprofit, but a profit. And there was a reason why. It was not because of money, but they were able. They want to be able to buy other technologies, right? So, and it does that. That's their whole goal. Is they want to make it way more efficient the way healthcare is provided. And you know, there's a lot of circumnavigating pharmaceuticals and stuff that I think, you know, because there's a lot of control mechanisms, whether people are, you know, a lot of more people are becoming aware of it and are waking up to it, that, you know, they don't necessarily want you to know certain things, right? We're profiting, and we have revenue streams off the way, the status quo, way things are now, so...
Yeah. Well, look, I think the reason that, I think you stated it in the beginning, the reason that this is going to be really good is I've done it. How many times have you had some weird kind of thing and you go and you look at it and you are convinced you're fucking dying of cancer by the time you get off? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or you're I've done it a million times,
right.
bro.
And the best part about this app is it gives you a list of the most likely to least likely.
Right.
And they've tested this with doctors, and it is 90% accurate.
Wow. And over time with AI, it'll become 100% accurate.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll say that for the next episode. They had major breakthrough with AI. Major.
Yeah. No, I could see this would be awesome, especially for someone who wants, you know, once they could get it to the point where it's accurate enough that it could be licensed to where scripts could be written.
Oh, that's crazy.
That would be like healthcare fucking solved.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
But how many people would abuse that, though?
Well, the thing is, if they just cut it around narcotics and had it where you can like get, for example, you can get antibiotics.
Sure.
If they just include antibiotics,
yeah,
think how much you would solve, how many issues you would solve.
I mean, that would rock the healthcare system.
It would rock. I mean, like, how many people you know just get amoxicillin? You know what I mean? Every time you have the flu or anything related with the flu or bronchitis or anything, you know, the cleanup process of that virus is always to give you amoxicillin, so, you know, it fights the bacterial infections that often occur after the virus hits your body and lowers your immune system.
Right.
Yeah, think if someone could just do it, because I hate every time I get bronchitis or get sick, I know what the fuck it is.
Yeah.
And I got to go stand in goddamn line at you know what I mean, at urgent care, wait forever to finally be told what the fuck it is, to get amoxicillin to stand goddamn line forever, you know what I mean? It'd be so nice to be like, boop, 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 bing, fucking sweet, go pick up my shit.
You know, the odd part is I think I'm going to project that in the future we will realize that all these different types of amoxicillin, whatever we're taking, are actually causing a bigger problem down the line in humanity.
Well, they are.
Because, well, and I know they are, and I've heard that, but I mean more so to the fact that, does anybody consider that it's necessary to get sick? That this virus or this germ or whatever had a purpose?
Well, sure, the medical industry does. Whenever you get your flu shot, that's the virus. They're giving you a dead cell of that. Right.
Which I never take, by the way. I don't know what you guys feel about vaccines and stuff.
It. Laura gets it religiously every year. I don't ever get it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
But what's funny
flu's not going to kill you. This isn't like the freaking 1800s.
Right.
Yeah. But what's ridiculous is every year it always does seem like I get the flu worse than her. It does, you know.
But you get the flu and then you're fine.
But there's this thing.
Why risk injecting some who knows what?
There's this thing. If your kid ran into my kid and your kid was sick, that the parents are like, "You son of a bitch," you know what I mean? I'm like, and I want to go. No, it is necessary that kids get sick. Okay, I'm sorry. You cannot stop the spread of this cold throughout your community. It had a purpose. Whether you like it or not is irrelevant because it has an actual purpose of why it exists in the first place.
Well, and we're down to like, you know, amoxicillin is like, and penicillin, it's like last antibiotic like left. You know what I mean? Like we have ripped through all of them and our body now doesn't respond. And man, should that ever disappear, we're in some fucking trouble.
Well, some people might go, so what is the reason for that cold then, Justin? Why? Well, here's an example. They've found tribes that are immune to a certain disease, and they found out almost all the people in the tribe have ringworm, and the ringworm is what made them immune to the disease. Well, nobody wants ringworm, you know, but there was a purpose for the ringworm. You know what I mean?
Well, some people purposely even get them so they could, you know, so they could eat food, so their body doesn't digest all. Have you heard about that before?
Those are the things they put in their intestines. They eat. They basically, so you can eat more, and they're taking the calories away because they're eating it from without your body absorbed.
What a disturbing way to go about losing weight. Yeah. Fucking weird, putting an animal inside me to eat my food for me.
Well, they're not. They're like leeches, but they're called something else.
I thought it was ringworm.
No, it's tapeworms.
Oh,
gross.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Gross as shit. Anyways, let's get to movie reviews. I have an awesome movie review that was suggested to me by our executive producer, Mr. Thomas Lee Bottom. And it is a documentary called Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. You remember The Island of Dr. Moreau with Val Kilmer? And,
well, I remember the original one, man.
No, the Island of Dr. Moreau with Marlon Brando, Val Kilmer. Okay, so this is a documentary that, admittedly, film buffs, niche, film buff guys, production guys it's fucking porn for guys like us. But it is just about the unbelievable, fucked up process of making this film, how it all happened, how it came about. And it shows you the incredible... I mean, if all of these reports are true, Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando were the most insane motherfuckers ever. Kilmer was ego through the roof. Like,
you can see, I've heard that
like
too.
He was casted for the lead, and then he called and said, yeah, I've looked over the script, and they had like 140 shooting days, and he said, I need you to go ahead and change that to 40 shooting days. That's what I got. And it was like, what the fuck? And he flew the director, Richard Stanley, to Tokyo just to tell him that, which he could have told him on the phone. He called DeLuca, the head of the film company, and said, hey, just so you know, listen, I don't have a lot of time. So on this phone call, what's going to happen is I'm going to talk, and you're just going to listen, and then it's going to end. You know what I mean? At that
this
time,
is Val Kilmer said that?
Yes. And at that time, Kilmer was like on top of the world. And then Marlon Brando at the time had recently lost his family. They didn't know if he could show up to set. And out of the blue, he shows up to set, and they're carrying him in on these big things. And he's got this white face paint on that he's never discussed. And he's making up his lines. And he tells the director about how in the very end he's going to finally take off his hat to reveal he's a dolphin, and no one knew the whole time. And the crew was supposed to be like, initially they had this Richard Stanley, this indie director that had done a couple indie films for Miramax that worked out well, but his manager was heir to the Wells estate. So he kind of had that connection to Dr. Moreau. So it started out to be some small film, and they shot in Cairns in Australia. And it was supposed to be like a $3 to $5 million sci-fi picture, indie type of thing. And then out of the blue, somehow it went to Brando, who said yes. And then Bruce Willis signed on. And then they learned that Martin Scorsese was going to direct it. And Stanley went apeshit and demanded a meeting with Brando to basically, fire at all cannons to try to sell himself. And it worked. Brando said, now I'm not doing it unless I have Richard Stanley. So that locked him in there. And the budget went, up to I want to say that it was it jumped up to 35, 40 million, which today they said would be 70 million.
Oh, huge, yeah.
And it was massive. And this shoot ended up going on forever. They ended up firing that director, got a different director that did not want to do it, but he was the only guy left, and he negotiated a 3-picture deal out of it just to do it. The director's room did not give a fuck what happened to the movie. It wasn't on his back.
What happened to Scorsese?
Scorsese
just didn't want to do it anymore?
Well, he got bounced out because Brando said, I will only do it with Richard Stanley. So Kilmer ended up taking the secondary lead role that only had 40 days on the shoot. So first they had James Woods, and then he had to go. But it's how all this happens, and it gives people a real insight to the fucking insanity that goes on.
Right.
I mean, and the crews, everybody was made up into monsters, right? The makeup, they were all animals.
Yeah.
And one of them was her boobs were out natural, and they put 3 sets of boobs below her, and she agreed to do this. So every day, they didn't know if they were shooting or not, because Kilmer would shoot when he wanted to. Brando would shoot when he wanted to. Richard Stanley, was difficult, they say, to work with. Fruza Balk says no, Stanley wasn't difficult, that it was everybody against him. She's in it as well, too. And it just kind of shows you just the pure fucking insanity of how Hollywood used to work.
I think I'd heard those stories before, and I think they've circulated for a while about that, I always wondered, what's the film?
I've heard that about Kilmer. A lot of people have told me Kilmer's crazy.
What's the film with the comedy where Iron Man actor plays the black dude, and they're in the jungle? It's a comedy.
Gosh, how do I not remember this name?
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
He's an Australian.
Yeah,
but
you're
he's
talking about Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if they based it off that, like the craziness of him trying to direct two huge stars that are actually bigger than him. You know what I mean? And they're telling him what to do.
Yeah, the story didn't match up with that. But I mean,
no, not exactly. What I mean is like they alter things, right? When you're doing a script, but it's always based off these crazy scenarios, like these stories.
Well, what was crazy is it was supposed to be like for a couple months, and it went on like, I think they say 8 or 9 months they were out there, and the crew would have to do full makeup every day, and months would go by without them shooting. So what they were doing is, admittedly, they talk about how they just did a shitload of drugs, had tons of sex. She was like, pretty much, they're like, we forgot what normal life was. Like, we'd wake up every day, and we'd go get made up to be an animal, and we'd be sent back to a sweet hotel room. And they're like, we all had great per diem, and then we had access to anything we wanted, in which we pretty much partied and lived debaucherously for months on end.
It's like Lord of the Flies.
You know, right. It was crazy. But it is, if you want to understand the pure insanity and the idiocy that has been associated with big time Hollywood filmmaking, especially in that era, like in the late 80s, early 90s. This film is amazing, and it's hilarious. The interviews from the crew, the Australian crew, they went back and found PAs and the drivers and shit, right? The guys that, and I know why they did it, because those guys will say whatever. They'll tell you the truth of what happened, you know what I mean? And it is insanity, where you're just like, wow.
God, this sounds awesome.
On. Yeah. It's awesome. So I definitely, again, it is called Lost Soul, The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau.
They needed a producer like Tom Cruise to come in and set all those big actors straight, man.
Yeah, right. It was crazy. So, anyways, check it out. Fan questions. We only have 2 this week. Very straightforward, I guess. Richie from Minneapolis wants to know if we've ever thought about making a fictional film based on a haunting like The Conjuring. I've said for a while I would love to like make a film based upon my family's haunting, because I just when you do a documentary, there's only so much you can cover, and the way I recall things is so much more terrifying than like what a documentary could even demonstrate. So it would be interesting for me to try to recreate what was really there. And like bring that nightmare back to life.
Would you direct it yourself?
Yeah, I'd like to. I wouldn't like to act in it. People ask me that. No, not at all.
Who'd you get to play as yourself?
I don't know. I've been asked that a million
Bruce
times.
Willis,
I don't
think.
know. Dude, everybody says that. Like Bruce Willis. I'm like, why Bruce Willis? That's so funny.
I don't know.
I don't know. I've heard that a lot of people have said that. Yeah, I don't know why. But see, the thing is, that wouldn't work. That would only work in my older life. That wouldn't work when I was a kid, obviously. So. I don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, no, I would absolutely, want to. I'm sure Justin would want to as well. It'd be fun as shit. When we talked about this before, right? Doing fictional films.
Yeah.
So it'd be a lot of fun. And Stevie, I got a question from you. Stacy from Little Rock, Arkansas says, Steve, I watched your video in the prison. If you're so scared of the paranormal, why do you go ghost hunting? If you're so scared, Steve, and you scream, what the fuck was that? She wants to know, why do you go?
I mean, I can give you a simple answer. Why do people ride roller coasters?
Yeah.
Gives you a rush. It's exciting. You don't really know what's going to happen next. And then the thing is, too, you have to think about when something happens that you don't expect, you don't plan on how you react. That was just, how I reacted at the time. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't go back there. I mean, I totally would. But I heard a huge noise and I ran away.
Yeah.
Well, look, it was what it was. I always, anybody that would laugh at that, I was in that prison. It was terrifying, So now go stand up there, and I wasn't even with the guys, but I've been in those scenarios. You go stand up there, have a loud bang like that, go off and tell me what you do. You shit yourself.
It was just a fight or flight. That's it. Yeah. I'm not going to fight a ghost. I wouldn't even think about it. Directly went to
It was
flight.
such a huge thing. It was like kind of unbelievable because at that point we were talking about the fact, why are we feeling sick? And just how do you just start getting nauseous out of the blue? And then Craig was too. And all of a sudden just boom, a concrete
No, it sounded like the floor collapsed.
Yeah.
It was not just like, oh, like a little bar fell or this fell, that fell. It literally sounded like the floor collapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was I mean, it was a really,
well, you
really
can never
nice...
look. Film never does justice to what occurred. You know what I mean? I knew from your response when I saw the footage that was a loud fucking noise. I mean, it's the bass of it just on film is big. It's like whoa. But yeah, I killer. I mean, it wasn't my question, but I think Justin and I would answer the same way. It's just a rush. Yeah, it's a total rush, and it almost seems stupid until you experience it. You're like, oh, that's what this is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're hunting for that moment, you know?
There's also that fascination, man, that there are things that you don't understand, you know? Because life can get pretty boring once you start figuring things out and nothing's surprising you anymore, you know?
Sure.
You can literally get in a rut. It's like why people rearrange their furniture, right? Because if your brain's seeing the same thing every day, you don't think different. You rearrange a simple thing like your furniture, and all of a sudden you come up with different ideas because you're not experiencing stupid things in your living room the same way, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like an awakening going, wow, I thought I had it figured out. And here's something that just threw this giant curveball, you know?
Yeah.
Big time.
Totally.
That's a good answer. And with that, guys, that brings us to the end of this episode of Paramerican Radio. To everybody who's been listening and all of those adding the show, thank you guys. The show is literally getting bigger every day. There's nothing but love from us to you for that. You guys are killing it. Thank you guys for supporting us, and we will see you next time. Justin, Stevie, say goodbye.
See ya.
Bye.
See you next time. Peace.